Hi friends, happy Saturday. I'm BooksMcD. In this video I'm going to talk about how I did for Tome Topple, and I'm going to review a couple of the books I read. So let's get started. How did I do for Tome Topple? Well, I didn't do so great, but that's okay. I found out about Tome Topple on the 12th, and it ended yesterday, which was the 22nd. I'm really great at procrastinating, so after I found out, I immediately didn't read for like 5 days. So at the top of this week, I decided if I want to read anything for Tome Topple, I have to get started. So I started reading like 4 or 5 hours a night, and I only read about a page per minute, so it took me a while to finish some of these books. I finished The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and we'll talk about in a second if that even counts or not for Tome Topple. And then I finished Little Women, which was 777 pages, so go me. For Erin Morgenstern's book, The Starless Sea, my Bookly app, which I use to like measure statistics and stuff of book reading, which is how I know I read a page a minute, that one says 512 pages in Bookly, but on Goodreads for the hardback, it says 498. It is so close to the 500 page mark for Tome Topple. I'll let you guys decide if it counts or not. I secretly want to count it because I had to read that one because it was due back at the library and somebody was waiting for it, and I had to finish it. I had to finish it because I wasn't going to wait for 6 more weeks. So let's talk about that one, The Starless Sea. This is Erin Morgenstern's second book, I believe. She wrote The Night Circus back in 2011. And I remember reading The Night Circus kind of. You know, there's a circus, there's a lot of rooms in these tents. It feels very magical and whimsical, and there are many layers. Very cool. I remember liking it. I gave it like a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. But I don't remember what happened exactly. And I'll tell you, I just finished The Starless Sea, and I'm weirdly in the same boat. Like, I just finished it, but I don't know what happened. So I gave it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I will say that. It was filled with the same magic and whimsy and layering. So essentially what happens is Zachary Ezra Rollins, which is the character's full name, which they mention at least once per chapter, finds a book that he's in. It's a story from his childhood. He's in this book. And he kind of goes investigating to figure out why he's in this book, what's going on. And there's a magical world with painted doors that you have to enter to get to this realm of books. There's kind of like a labyrinth under everything of different rooms, and there's things with time and fate happening, and it all feels lovely. Like, I love world building, so I loved this book just for the world building. I was having such a great time with like the labyrinth and the many rooms and how Zachary gets food from the kitchen, which is like a dumbwaiter system, and the kitchen just seems really cute. Like, they send up things with little notes and he can get like any kind of muffin, and you know, little things like that. I love world building. But the thing is books also usually have to have plots. And even though the first 2/3 was interesting, we're figuring out this book, we're finding this place where there's a mystery, there's a bad guy. I'm thinking, we have to defeat this bad guy. This person is trying to close all the doors, and it seems to be affecting the magical labyrinth, the world underneath. We're gonna get this bad guy, and that's the story. Awesome, fun. 2/3 of the way into the book, that's not what happens. And I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I just feel like we took not even a 180. Like, the book went an entirely different direction. I don't understand why. You know, I'm not frustrated, because it was still full of that magic and almost like fables. Like, it was so interesting, the last 1/3, but it just didn't feel cohesive with the first 2/3. It felt like 2 books got smashed together. And on top of that, you know, there are other books involved in the story. It's a book about books. And if you love books about books like I do, this is still fun for you, you know, reading all of this world and these books about books. And there's a book of fables that repeat itself or come into play later. And those fables are all magical and wonderful. But everything's connected kind of out of order. I mean, there is a chronology to some parts, but those fables are interjected randomly. I mean, maybe it's not so random. Maybe you're supposed to figure it out. But the problem is, I don't want to figure it out. And I feel like that's got to mean something, right? So maybe my 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads is a little generous. If they had half stars, maybe I would have given it a 3.5, which feels right. I used to have like a rating system out of 10 that I would do personally, and a 3.5, maybe doubled, would be a 7. So maybe be a little lower that, in between a 6 and a 7 for me. The thing is I would definitely recommend this to certain people that I know enjoy this kind of thing, but I wouldn't necessarily outwardly recommend this book to everyone. The reason being is I'm not sure it resolves in the most clear way. And even though that might be the fun of it for some people, there are symbols and mysteries to figure out even beyond after reading the book. That's not my favorite thing to do. I don't love open-endedness. I don't love having to interpret something that I don't understand so that I have to Google a lot of other people's interpretations, which can sometimes be fun. But in this instance for me, I'm not sure I really want to invest the time to figure out what I didn't understand. I talked about this one with a friend as well, just to see, like, is it me? And she had the same thoughts. So I'm not sure it is just me. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on the Starless Sea. I would love to figure out if there's something I missed, if there's something deep within the symbols of time and fate and this labyrinth of puzzles and rooms and books and time and fate meeting and all of these metaphors. I would love to hear somebody else's take on this book, but I just don't know if I can become that invested in something that I didn't know if I felt was cohesive enough, and if I didn't feel like had a great resolution to what I thought was the main story. And maybe that wasn't supposed to be the main story. Maybe the main story all along was just supposed to be what Zachary Ezra Rollins' purpose is in that book he finds and in everything. And that could be it. And that's fine. I will say the world is lovely. I had such a good time just absorbing that. The book, in my opinion, was a little long and could have used an editor, given what I've said about the cohesiveness. But I did give it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and I'm going to keep that score, even though I do feel like it's a little generous. So give the Starless Sea a try, Let me know what you think about it, and let me know if it counts for Tome Topple. So the next one that I said I was going to read and didn't was 1Q84. I was already 230 pages in. This set is 1,157 pages total for the whole book. And I knew I wasn't going to finish that one, given that I didn't read for the first 5 days. So I didn't even start this. I didn't continue with this one. I put that one off to the side, and I said, I will finish that one later. Another one I said I was going to read that I didn't finish was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So I made it more than halfway through, but I realized, I did the math. I figured I have enough time left. I could actually squeeze this in. It would be down to the wire, but I could finish this one. It's just that I felt I was rushing as I was reading it. So that was a little bit not enjoyable for me. Half the fun, like I said, I love world building. Half the fun of reading Harry Potter for me is playing that movie in my head and just like allowing myself to read it slowly and allowing myself to become absorbed in the world and the plot. And it's so juicy. So for this one, I actually decided to stop myself because I want to enjoy this. I love Harry Potter so much, so I didn't want to rush myself. And this book actually comes from this set right behind me. And you can see the little hole right here. And it is a gorgeous box set. So I will be continuing to read the rest of these after I finish this one. The next one that I did finish, so I'll just be reviewing real quick, was Little Women. Gorgeous cover with the shiny lettering there. This one is 777 pages. So let's talk about Little Women. Some people might not know the story, so real quick, Little Women is about the March family. It's post-Civil War. It's about the March family. It's mainly about these 4 sisters, but the mother and the father come into play. There's a neighbor named Laurie. He comes into play, and a lot of characters throughout the entire work. Little Women is a classic story. It's a children's story written by Louisa May Alcott, and it is considered to be semi-autobiographical. So the thing about Little Women is you have to consider it in the time in which it was written. Because when you read it, if you consider that in context, there are some amazing elements to this book. There is a main character who is tomboyish, which was considered a big deal for that time. She's a writer, and a lot of the women pursue artistic endeavors. Beth is a musician, Amy is an artist. Jo with her writing, and their mother is really great about teaching life lessons and things to learn about yourself and how to grow up. And I liked it for that. I will say this was also originally published as magazine articles. So it was published in many parts, and I think it might have been more enjoyable to read coming out in those many parts. The chapters feel like episodes for each sister, and even though there is a chronology to the events, reading them all together in this tome and the part 1 and part 2 of it, it was a lot. It was a lot to get through, and I did feel a little bit like, because I had to rush because of Tome Topple. But even that aside, they're easy lessons. They're a little bit philosophical in nature sometimes, and they're probably good for children in general. The women do have to spend a little bit too much time focusing on how to be demure and control their tempers and find husbands, and, you know, their mother doesn't necessarily think they have to find husbands. She just wants them to be happy. But at the same time, you do kind of get that message throughout the book because it's of its time. Women had to do those things. And I agree that people should probably learn to control their emotions and just master their tempers and, you know, themselves. But reading it so many times over and over, that's how it starts to feel preachy. So I do understand people's criticisms of Little Women sometimes, who say that it feels preachy, who don't think these lessons are good for children now. But I think on the whole, the book is good because, you know, we see women take on roles that they normally wouldn't have taken on then. The fact that they are pursuing endeavors that have interests to them, because that wasn't a concern then, what interests women. And to see a whole book of it and 2 parts and a magazine that kept selling it as an article, and to see that there was an interest in what women thought and what they felt and what they were learning and what they cared about, that's important. And so I love it for that. I will say I enjoy the movies way better, and that is probably going to get me some, I don't know, book-loving backlash from people, because I love the 2019 version, but I love the 1994 version. And there are lessons in those movies as well that come directly from the books. The movies aren't really missing much. They're maybe missing some of the philosophizing and some of the more religious aspects of the book, because her father is a preacher. But I do feel that the movies really do get the messages across. And I do think that it's wonderful that Louisa May Alcott was able to publish this in the late 1800s, and that people did actually have an interest in what women were thinking and feeling and doing at that time. Would I recommend reading it? You know, I am between. I think yes. I think I would recommend reading Little Women. I don't know what the children's abridged version would leave out. So that's why I'm concerned about saying no, I wouldn't recommend it. The reason is there are some great lessons in here. And I do think that understanding the history of what women were thinking and feeling and learning, even though it's probably very glossed over and put in a pretty little package with a bow for children's lessons and things like that, it's important. It's important to history. It's important to see that a woman who dedicated her career to writing could put something together that people loved and cherished and wanted to read. And I think you might miss some of those things if you only read the children's abridged version. I will say, you know, there are some scenes where they kind of go through everything in detail. Like at the very beginning, they talk about one of their plays they put on, and they actually put the whole play in the book. At one point, they do the Pickwick Papers, which is in the 1994 movie, and they go through and they have each article from the Pickwick Papers for that one scene in the book. It's just, there are so many details. That aside, there are great lessons. So would I recommend reading it? Probably once. I'm personally not going to reread it, but I think it's worth it to see what Louisa May Alcott did. This is one of her most popular works. She did write Little Men, she did write Jo's Boys, but this is it. Little Women is important. So give it a shot. For me, it is a 4 out of 5 for the history. It is a 4 out of 5 for the characters, for the lessons. It's interesting to me that it's semi-autobiographical. Louisa May Alcott, you know, had a sister who died. She actually adopted her sister's daughter. She never got married though, so maybe that's a spoiler, sorry. She didn't actually get married in real life. She dedicated her career to writing, which is very cool. In Little Women, which I think you'll see in the 2019 movie, it was considered that maybe the book wouldn't do as well if she didn't, the character Jo, get married, so. But power to Louisa May Alcott. She wrote this. People liked it. People loved it back then. People love it now. Watch the 1994 version, okay? Love it. So that's what I read for Tome Topple. I didn't do so great for the Tome Topple. I only read 2 books, maybe if the Starless Sea counts. So I guess I'm just a student. Meh. Those were some quick reviews of Little Women and the Starless Sea. A little summary of how I did for Tome Topple, what I read, what I didn't read, and why. Follow me on Goodreads, Twitter, Instagram, Litsy. I'm at BooksMcD on all of those things. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to subscribe. Leave me comments, book suggestions, book recommendations, etc. Suggestions for videos to do, whatever you want. I'll read the comments, so just let me know. And thanks for watching.